Maruti is discontinuing the Ciaz. That leaves us with just 5 sedans in the market at a time when not too long ago we had as many as 18 sedans. Our first sedan was technically the Hindustan Ambassador.
Right.
From the 50s, 57. Then we had the Premier Padmini, and it was these two so-called sedans which kind of were around for 30 years when the economy was closed.
So yeah, we are seeing diversity of powertrains, and shrinking diesel has been one of the key factors behind sedan sales going down in the Indian market. I would love to own a good sedan in the market, but there are lack of options. What do you do? I mean, What options do you go for? And you end up exploring all the potential mid-size SUV or compact SUVs that are there in the market.
Yeah. And that's why, the sedan really is fighting against a massive force which is threatening to make it extinct. And hello and welcome to Deep Drive, our weekly podcast powered by Kotak Mahindra Prime. Now today we are going to be talking about the sedan segment. This topic has come on the back of the fact that Maruti is discontinuing the Ciaz. That leaves us with just 5 sedans in the market at a time when not too long ago we had as many as 18 sedans. Sedans were really the backbone of the Indian market for a long time. What's changed, why it's changed, that's what we're going to be talking about. I'm Hormazd Sorabjee.
Hi, I'm Ketan Thakker. Yes, Hormazd, a declining segment, but India for long aspired to own a 3-box car, a sedan. And if I'm not wrong, historically, everyone would want to get into the sedan segment first before they were to actually get into the other segments of the market. Could you just help us reflect on our history of the Indian passenger vehicle market and as to how critical was the role of sedans?
Well, I think sedans have been in the Indian market since the inception of the Indian market, because let's take it post-independence. When we started off, our first sedan was technically the Hindustan Ambassador.
Right.
From the 50s, 57. Then we had the Premier Padmini, and it was these two so-called sedans which kind of were around for 30 years when the economy was closed. And then when we had that broadbanding policy of a little bit of, more sedans coming in the post-Maruti age, you had cars like the 118NE, you had the Contessa, then Maruti got the Esteem. And what's ironic about Maruti is that Maruti actually was one of the pioneers of the sedan segment in India in many ways. I mean, let's start with the Maruti 1000 way back in 89, 90, I think. When it came, it was seen as a luxury car, absolute luxury car. I mean, this was the car to be seen in by the rich and famous. It was about double the price of the next Maruti, which was at that time the 800 only. So from 800 straight to 1000, there was no Zen then. So, and then you had Maruti later on, getting into the sedan segment in a big way with a very almost simultaneous launch of the mid-size Desire and the SX4.
Right.
SX4 also a unique car which was slightly raised, it had a different stance. But somehow Maruti hasn't been able to crack the sedan segment or the slightly premium end. I think maybe it's the badge, because people wanted a more aspirational brand and a badge, and I think that's what
Maruti was seen as more affordable. And
yeah, it was seen as a budget brand.
Yeah, that's right, Hormazd. I mean, we even saw the Baleno in the sedan avatar could barely...
Yeah, the original Baleno was a sedan.
So the sedan avatar, it could barely compete with the rivals at that point in time. And even with the Kizashi, I mean, that was the most expensive sedan that we saw from Maruti, and it was a significant leap from what their bottom at that point in time was. And it showed that it is hard for one to transition to the next stage, and the aspiration at that point in time was still Hondas and Toyotas.
And the brand strength of Maruti just wasn't there at that time. Now they have gone up gradually. The fact that Grand Vitaras are selling at these prices shows that Maruti's own brand strength has gone up. Nexa has played a big role in this, as we know.
Yes.
But at that time, Maruti didn't have the brand strength to really, let's say, compete effectively at the higher end of the mid-size segment. And you're right on the Baleno. The original Baleno is a complete flop. But let's not forget, I remember on that Baleno, the fight between the Indian government and Suzuki was happening at that time. And I think on the pricing, from what I understand, the government insisted on a particular price. And yeah, exactly. So they knew they were overpricing it at that time. So, and again, Kizashi didn't fare well at all. So, I think, yeah, again, as I said, ironic that Maruti, which has really kind of pushed the sedan segment, been one of the pioneers in it,
Right.
finally hasn't been able to.
They got it right with Ciaz, but unfortunately it's going. So
Yeah. So you're absolutely right. The sedan was at one point the most prestigious car to have. It's what everyone aspired to own. You know, the third box gave you a sense of status. It lent itself to being chauffeur driven. When you went to functions, you wanted to be seen getting out of a nice three-box car. It was all about prestige. It was all about, how do I say, aspiration. So clearly, it was the way. But look at 2024. I mean, I think sedans or the mid-size sedan, which is what we call the full-fat sedan with a proper proportion, not the subcompact sedan which we've talked about. It's just 1.7% of the market in 2024. Who would have thought that?
absolutely minuscule, a very small share.
And if you look at the numbers, Ketan, I don't know how many we did last year. We did about 72,000.
That's right.
Yeah, 72,000. I think in the year 2000, we have the data here. In the year 2000, we did 98,000. So we were selling more sedans in the year 2000 than we are selling 24 years later, despite the car market exploding. So clearly at that point, I think the market share was about a good
15%.
15%. So clearly, I think sedans was the way to go. And I think every manufacturer who came in to India launched with a sedan. Today, everyone's doing it with an SUV,
Right.
which is interesting. But at that time, everyone came with a sedan. So let's see, there was who came first. I think Ford with the Escort.
Right.
You had Opel with the Astra.
Right.
You had Daewoo with the Cielo.
Right.
And yeah,
Honda with the Accord and
Honda with the City.
City.
Absolutely right. And we'll talk about the City because that's really been the backbone of the sedan segment, the top selling sedan of all time in India. You had Honda with the City. Then I think you had even the Peugeot 309 at that time,
Right.
which again flopped. And you even had Mitsubishi, first car, the Lancer. And, we spoke of Ford with the Escort, but the really big one, which they made a mark, was the Ikon.
Yes.
Again, three-box. Again, derived from a Fiesta hatchback, the UK Fiesta, but they were a little smarter. They kind of lengthened the rear doors. And again, I think, that trend we started seeing happening because earlier, the whole idea of making a notchback was to keep costs low, even use the rear doors of the hatchback and stick on a third box. Very much what they were doing with sub-4 meter sedans later, but they even did that to some extent right in the beginning. Proportions had gone for a toss, but it was the Ikon which kind of Ford invested a lot. So behind the B pillar, it was completely new, India-specific for more legroom, more headroom. So in a way, the Ikon was a good template of what the Indian mid-size sedan should be. It was a fantastic car to drive, really brilliant. But again, other issues of costs and reliability didn't play out. And again, it kind of faltered along the way. And they kept it running for a long time, the Ikon, which they did. So clearly, at that time, sedans really were the flavor of the day.
What are the reasons, according to you, Hormazd?
So I think the reason was, let's face it, from a manufacturer point of view, like in a dealership, you have your sales advisor pushing one model, not because you want it, but because he's getting the maximum commission or whatever on
Right.
that, or the company wants to push that particular model because it's a slow moving. Manufacturers had a vested interest in sedans because that's where the profit was.
Right.
Now, because of the aspirational factor of a sedan back then, you could price, the perceived value was much more than what it actually cost the manufacturer.
Yes.
Sometimes the delta between or a difference between a hatchback and a sedan was nothing. Sometimes the hatchback was even more because you had expensive and complex elements in a hatchback like the tailgate opening with gas struts,
Right.
which was quite expensive.
So that's interesting.
Whereas with the sedan, it was just a third box added on and, a hinged boot, which really didn't cost much. And let's say to a manufacturer, the manufacturing cost between the hatchback equivalent and a sedan equivalent may have been, I think, 15 to 20,000 rupees. Whereas if you see in India, you could charge 1 lakh more for the body style.
Absolutely.
That's what happened with Tata and the Indica as well. I mean, a classic example, when they launched the Indica, they did it book perfect, multiple body styles. Of course, they didn't have SUVs then. They had a wagon which didn't work, but they had the sedan also.
Right.
And Tata with the Indica had three sedans technically. You had the XL, which not many people remember,
Right.
which is the extra long. Great concept, but unfortunately, the Tata brand couldn't kind of sell luxury at that time.
Right.
And there was a mismatch between the brand and what it had offered. Very spacious with all luxury features in it. So, I think, again, so you can see the Indigo, about 1 lakh more than what the Indica was. Didn't cost them that much to make. Same with let's say, Opel. Which was doing the Corsa, the notch Corsa, which is again, they didn't do the hatch, but again, not much more to make because they could price it much more.
Right.
Same with, let's say, even with whether you had a Cielo, or everyone had come in at that point with the notchbacks purely because of the price perception they carried.
And a consumer was willing to pay that little bit extra for a 3-box car versus a compact vehicle at that point in time.
That's right, absolutely. And I think, so this was the entry strategy then, come in with a 3-box sedan. There were no sub 4-meter rules. Regulations were, not as stringent or complicated as they are now. And that was the aspiration, was the sedan. Today, it's completely the opposite. I mean, you have to launch with an SUV or you're dead.
Absolutely.
So it's really changed a lot. Yeah.
Now, you mentioned about regulation, Hormazd, and analyzing the segment. Two key regulation has played a very important role when it comes to the mid-size sedan segment. First is the sub 4-meter rule that came out, and the Indian ingenuity of wanting to create a more compact vehicle shown through. And with that, we saw the invention of sub 4-meter sedans. So,
which really took market away from the mid-size sedan.
Absolutely.
In fact, we have the data here as well. Yeah.
Yes. So that's right, Hormazd. So that took the market away. I think Dzire, when it was first launched, it was not in a sub 4-meter sedan avatar, though it was compact. And I think it was in 2010. The Dzire was the highest selling mid-size sedan with 40% share. 40% share, and with the compact with the sub 4-meter rule, it was able to proliferate further, and it actually brought in a lot of hatchback buyers into the sedan segment. And
even maybe some downgraded as well, because if they were not missing out too much at a much cheaper cost, downgrading from mid-size to a compact sedan.
Now, absolutely, it was an absolutely attractive offering, and plus with that 1.3 liter diesel of Fiat, it was always on a wait list. You never got a Dzire diesel for almost 3-4 years, and during those days, diesel was going through the roof.
Absolutely.
And that, in a way, kind of created a foundation for sub 4-meter sedan market in the country. And today, Dzire is the biggest selling sedan, though in a sub 4-meter.
So it's interesting that Maruti was quite pivotal in kind of, starting the decline of the mid-size sedan segment, which, as we said, historically has been with us since the days of the Ambassador. Because two things happen. One is the Dzire, it got out of the mid-size sedan segment and into the compact sedan segment. So clearly took a lot of volumes there and a lot of customers there as well. And I think clearly, so we've seen a big drop over here. So we've got the data. I think the peak of the sedan segment was in 2011. 364,000 mid-size sedans were sold. That's quite a number, and I think that accounted for about 15%. So it hung on to its market share. Obviously, volumes increased and then steadily declined. We had a jump in 2015. And then it's just been declining ever since. Of course, it bounced back after COVID, but then all segments bounced back. So from at an all-time low of 65,000 in 2020, it bounced back to 110 in 2022. But I think that's more the demand coming back from COVID. But really, I think from then, it's really been in rapid, it's not a declining segment. It's almost a dying segment happening over there.
Absolutely. Really sad. And when the transition was happening from mid-size sedan to sub 4-meter sedan, we also saw the emergence of subcompact SUV and monocoque SUVs, Hormazd.
I think that really was the nail in the coffin for the sedan. The SUV has been in the nail in the coffin for a lot of segments because everyone wants an SUV in every possible form. But you're right. I think 2011, was when it all started. But I want to go back on the peak of the sedan segment. 18 models at one time. I mean, it was amazing. You had cars like, the Logan, You had the Nissan Sunny, which actually did quite well. It was, and I think they're still making the Sunny and exporting it, isn't it?
Yes, almost. Yeah, they're exporting it to Egypt at this point in time. And I mean, I'd heard that probably, they probably may pull the plug in Egypt in 24, but surprise, surprise, they actually want to continue for next 5 years. So you're going to have India-made Sunny being exported to Egypt for another 5 years.
That's the scoop, Ketan. You need to write about it there.
Yes, sure, yes.
Yeah, so I think, so it's been in decline. But let's talk about what's really killed the sedan segment. Yeah.
So I think it's got to do with the emergence of different body styles. We started seeing the emergence of sub-4 meter SUVs. We saw the first monocoque SUV from Renault.
The Duster. It was our car of the year at that time. Quite a groundbreaking car, absolutely. Because until that time, everything was ladder-based. We had the old Mahindras, we had the Tata Safaris, everything more expensive, also cumbersome to drive, very big. And I think the Duster with its car-like dynamics really kind of was quite a revolution at that time. So, but though the Duster started that revolution, it was the Creta which took it to a different level.
Absolutely.
I think today, Creta, we've done a podcast on the Creta.
It's like the benchmark.
It is the benchmark. It is the kind of ubiquitous family car today. An SUV gives you everything. And I think it's just hammered, let's say, competition with sedans, especially on all sides. Even the Varna.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And then we had the Eco Sport, I think, which was another groundbreaking car. Again, an Autocar car of the year. I'm really glad all these cars have really proved to, be historic. So it kind of justifies our choice as well in giving them that honor. I think even the Eco Sport sub 4 meter vehicle, again, not the first. Do you know which the first was? It was the Premier Review.
Yeah.
He couldn't do much with that, Maitreya Doshi, but I think you still have to give him credit for being the first sub 4 meter model in the market. But again, I think EcoSport, that segment also exploded with it. We know the price.
Both those models, in a way, paved the way for other rivals to get into that space, and which, in a way, also explored the options for the prospective buyer.
And took buyers away from the sedan segment, which has then just been in decline after that.
Yes, and Hormazd, I was talking about regulation. One was a sub 4 meter regulation, and the other was also the BS6. Diesel was a sizable part of the mid-size sedan portfolio.
In fact, I think we have the data here, and looking at Ciaz data, in 2016, I think that was the peak sales of about 63,000 units of Ciaz sold. I don't know if that was the year it overtook City, but
yes, Omar, that's correct. That was a year when Ciaz actually overtook City.
And it had, and I think Ciaz had out of that it was 38,000 or 61% of Ciaz's were diesel. Yeah.
Yes.
And we'll talk about the diesel story again in the Ciaz, and generally I think we'll also touch upon the Ciaz since 2014. What happened, why Maruti didn't invest in it. But I think sticking right now with, the story on diesel being the other factor, we really saw the decline of the sedan because a lot of people got out of it. So, and I think today we don't have any diesel sedans.
Yeah, we don't
have. Though it's a declining market, it's still a sizable percentage of the market, isn't it? And we don't have.
Yeah, we don't have diesel in sedan. I think sedans are about 7 to 8% of the market, but largely in the subcompact space. In the mid-size sedan, as we discussed, only 1.7% of the overall passenger vehicle market is mid-size sedan. So clearly, the share is shrinking and it's becoming smaller and smaller. And it's only because of the two new entrants that we saw from the Volkswagen group, the Skoda and the Volkswagen. Skoda Slavia, Volkswagen Virtus. Surprise, surprise, that Virtus today is the largest selling sedan.
Today, you have to hand it to Volkswagen. They are kind of carrying the beacon of the sedan segment, pushing the Virtus. It's a great car, and so is the Slavia. Great to drive, and kind of fits the sedan DNA quite well, which we'll also touch upon. But again, coming to the decline of the sedan, I think the last diesel sedan was the Verna 1.5, which again with BS 6.2, which came in 2023, they knocked it out. So each regulation change has been killing the diesel because diesels typically find it much harder to meet, a tougher emission norm when it kicks in at a reasonable cost to kind of continue it in the market to justify, let's say upgrading it. So right now, no diesels. In fact, I think we've got a very small percentage, the 1.7% of sedan market who would have believed is hybrid. And that's only to do with the very small numbers of the city hybrid that there are, but absolutely no diesel, and I think that's very telling.
I mean, significant shift that we've seen even in the SUV space. Who would have thought that predominantly diesel-run SUVs would be preferred with a petrol powertrain? So yeah, we are seeing diversity of powertrains, and shrinking diesel has been one of the key factors behind sedan sales going down in the Indian market.
Absolutely. And, let's look historically, I think, which were the sedans, Ketan. I think interesting data here, which our audience, I'm sure, would love to know. Obviously, number one selling sedan of all time is the Honda City. Not surprising.
Yes.
By end of 2024, 907,000.
Almost
I don't know how long it will
million.
take to hit a million.
Yeah.
A lot of people ask, will it be around to hit a million? At the rate it's going, difficult. But I think City is such a backbone of Honda. It's really as much of a brand as
what is heartening is that they are working on the new gen City for the Indian market.
Exactly, yeah. So City will continue. Number two, do you know which number two is in the...
Yes, Hormazd, it's Hyundai Verna.
Hyundai Verna. So obviously, I think Hyundai also believe in the sedan segment. 512 or 512,000 units all time. That's how much it's sold. And that's, in addition to that, if you bring the Accent in, it's 213,000. So Hyundai really 700,000 sedans, since they in the last 25 years. Significant number. And then, of course, Maruti, which, I mean, the good old Ciaz, 340,000. Is really a shame that it's gone just now. But, I think Maruti has a lot to blame for this, because if you look at it, they really didn't push the Ciaz or develop it as much as they did. See, 2014 it was launched. It's really not seen any changes,
major upgrades
in product life cycle. No major upgrades. The diesel went. We all know the story that the 1.5 diesel, which was absolutely brilliant in the Ciaz. I mean, I was just blown away with it. We've done this podcast before. Maruti really had that massive diesel blunder where their 1.5 had a technical issue. It could not meet BS6 norms, and Maruti had to abruptly pull out of diesel completely.
Yeah.
Ciaz was greatly impacted with that.
Yeah.
And I think, honestly, they didn't bother to upgrade the product. It was a good product, I think, great legroom. It kind of, did the job for a lot of its owner. I think fresher and fresher options kept coming. And if you look at Honda with the City, they constantly keep upgrading it.
Raising the bar.
Yeah, you can question about do they do enough. That's a separate question. And then you have Hyundai, with the Verna. But I think, now we have to talk about what Volkswagen is doing. I mean, a lot of people say that maybe Volkswagen got their product strategy wrong, investing in sedans at the time they did, when everyone was doing SUVs. Kia did an SUV, MG did an SUV, so one can debate that. But clearly they had the legacy of the Vento and the Rapid, which had done quite well. So it was quite logical they did the sedan. And it's good they did the sedan, because even though the segment is shrinking, they are kind of getting a good market share in that. And both the products are actually very, very good and better than their SUV counterparts, especially for them. And with the diesel gone, the Ciaz just had that 1.5 naturally aspirated engine, really very kind of weak, mediocre, with a 4-speed gearbox. Now, a sedan guy wants a little bit more power. I mean, this is okay in a lower category. So I think just with this one engine option, also the Ciaz had very limited appeal. And, with that diesel gone. So I think, it's all these factors that really killed the Ciaz finally. And Maruti's kind of, let's say, indifference to it, didn't want to invest in it. You can see Maruti's point, because you don't want to throw money into a segment that's declining.
Absolutely.
But there's a chicken and egg situation. I'm sure if all the manufacturers kind of said, hey, let's give the sedan segment a solid shot, I'm sure there would be some takers to it, because today a lot of people are exasperated. They want sedans, but they don't have a choice. And so they have no choice but to get an equivalent SUV. So I think it's both are to blame: consumers who want SUVs over sedans, which we can go into, and also the manufacturers who aren't pushing enough. So I think the brands taking on, or the flag bearers of the sedan segment, are the Volkswagen Group. Both Volkswagen brand and Skoda really kind of, pushing their Virtus and Slavia respectively. And one can argue that, Volkswagen, did they bet right in investing in both these cars as part of the India 2.0 thing at a time when sedans were declining? I think it's the right strategy because clearly on that platform, what other body styles could you have? And, from a profitability point of view also, as we said, it's better in terms of the feasibility, the cost economics of it. So I think Volkswagen has really pushed, and Ketan, I think Volkswagen is the number one sedan brand in
the segment.
In the segment 2024.
Yeah, it's surprise. In fact, if you were to combine the group volumes, which is Skoda and Volkswagen together, they account for half of sedan market in India today.
Fantastic.
29% is Volkswagen, 21% is Skoda, and Honda City is relegated to the third position.
Right.
So, I mean, clearly the conviction of wanting to bring out sedan has helped them, albeit lower volumes.
Yeah.
But clearly, when you combine all the volumes together, clearly they have a position.
But I think that's where you got to hand it to Volkswagen, to really have pushed the sedan segment in the way they have, because I think a lot of people want sedans, and I, for one, am more of a sedan guy than an SUV guy.
Same here, Hormazd. I'm really sad. I mean, I would love to own a good sedan in the market, but there are lack of options. What do you do? I mean, what options do you go for? And you end up exploring all the potential mid-size SUV or compact SUVs that are there in the market. So, and we've seen that with every possible category. Wherever we've seen lack of option, the category has dwindled. I mean, it starts right from the entry car segment. We saw people exiting the space, and we saw how segment keeps shrinking. And similar to the story with the mid-size sedan.
Exactly. So it's hard to say, is this really the demand or is it the lack of options? I think it's a combination of both. I think a lot of manufacturers have kind of really abandon the sedan segment. I think, but in the end, it's a tough market out there. Margins are squeezed so much that you can just have to absolutely focus where you can make the money and, not kind of spread yourself too thin into segments which are marginal and obviously impact the bottom line. But, again, talking about sedans versus SUVs, look, let's face it, the SUVs appeal is far greater. We know it, the road presence, the high seating position, and above all that ground clearance, which is super, super essential for Indian roads. So I think with that, it just kind of, just whacks the sedan out. But I think, sometimes between buying a sedan or an SUV, there's a lot to be said about a sedan. Sedans typically have a more comfortable ride. And the reason for that is that they sit lower than SUVs do. SUVs, because of their height and their higher center of gravity, manufacturers have to stiffen the suspension to counter body roll.
Right.
So SUVs, like for like, and I think the Virtus, Taigun, Slavia, Kushaq are classic examples because same platform, same companies are using a lot of the same mechanicals. You'll find that the SUVs, the Taigun and the Kushaq, have stiffer suspension compared to the Virtus and Slavia, which are much more plush. The ride is more comfortable. Legroom is fantastic in the Virtus. Again, the Taigun and Kushaq are tight at the back. So, I think from their point of view, the sedan has a far better appeal. Driving dynamics, you can't compare the two. I personally love low cars, just because they just give better handling, all things being equal. And there's nothing, that gives you a sense of, let's say, reassurance, especially when you're pushing hard. If you like driving, sedans generally are there. But these are kind of, let's say, very few people see these benefits.
Yeah.
And that's why, the sedan really is fighting against a massive force, which is threatening to make it extinct, and that force is the SUV.
Wow, you said the word extinct. My next question to you was going to be, what is the future of sedan, Hormazd? What do you think? The options are becoming lesser and lesser.
Yeah, so we've seen now what the sedans are there in the market. You've got the Verna. I think Hyundai will continue with the Verna because, that's what they do. They believe in that segment. For Honda, the City, next-gen City on the anvil.
Yes.
So we know that's happening.
Platform.
Yeah, exactly. PF2 platform. So I think City has been a brand. We've seen it's the longest brand, mass market brand in the country today that exists. Starting in 98, all the way to now. I think the only brand older is the E-Class Merc, again another sedan.
Yeah.
So if you see, the existing sedans are the longest, let's say, running brands are all sedan brands.
Right.
City and E-Class in their own respective segments. And I think City will continue. Virtus and Slavia, I think we're going to be seeing major facelifts happening to them, and they're going to be doing a lot in that. Might even be having reclining back seats, you know, to kind of enhance the kind of backseat appeal. Don't forget sedans, backseat, super important across categories. But I don't think there is any next generation Virtus and Slavia in the mix. So on that MQB 37 platform, which we've talked a lot about, you're getting the next gen Taigun and next gen Kushaq, but there is no sedan plan over there. So frankly, they will like chalao these cars for as long as they can with minor tweaks and upgrades. It'll kind of go the Vento way, which we saw went on for about 10 years, but so I think really in terms of the future, very bleak for sedans, and that's quite a shame.
A really sad story.
Yeah.
A really sad story. So, do you think at the top end, the luxury, which is usually what people look up to, that they may probably pave the way for more options in the future?
I think luxury sedans, definitely that is one segment where the sedan thrives. I mean, look at the E-Class. It is the luxury car today,
right?
You know, in terms of volume, in terms of appeal, everything. It sells in pretty decent numbers for a car that's, you know, now coming close to a crore in some of its variants and even crossing it. But I think we're talking about the mid-size segment. I think so that's where there are
options will be limited.
Mainstream options will be limited.
Yeah. Probably powertrain. Do you think, Hormazd, maybe with the electric powertrain, and even there we barely see any alternatives?
I think the challenge in electrification again is that sedans typically have a ground clearance problem.
Absolutely.
So to counter that, EVs, it's best to have an SUV.
Right.
So the ground clearance is high. And we know that ground clearance is a problem in sedans because I've just been driving the BMW i5, different thing. It is got horrendous ground clearance. I can't get out of my gate without it hitting, you know. So that's a great ground clearance test. It is a little challenging. It hits speed breakers. It's just terrible, you know. So because that's just how it is. The battery sits low. You can't raise a sedan because you'll spoil the stance.
Right.
So I think electrification or the move to electrification is going to be another challenge for sedans to survive. And, who knows what is going to be around 10, 15 years later. Maybe market will change. People might want it back, though I think people will come back to hatchbacks. But I think the sedan segment, the third box, which people like, I think that's only going to be in the luxury end.
Now, it's sad because, with the SUVs, the variety of design is still a challenge. I still would like, always known sedans as a chauffeur-driven car, where you can have a nice comfort at the back seat. And lack of designers. The aerodynamically, I don't know, Hormazd, with the SUVs, it's just very boxy and...
That's true, Ketan, but that's very personal again. A lot of people love the design, love the road presence of SUVs, big grills, big tires, that sort of thing, big wheels and tires, large wheels.
Yeah.
People go on 20-inch wheels right now. They like all that.
Yeah.
But I think the sedan, let's say fan, like yourself, and even me, we are a very small, minority right now. And I think clearly that's the reality. I think that's what the way the market is going. And I think it's really sad for consumers because there are a lot of people out there who want sedans and they just don't have the choice. If you look across segments,
Absolutely.
You've just got one Camry as a flag bearer in that one segment with the Superb gone, and let's say the executive sedan is completely kind of evaporated. It's vanished altogether.
Absolutely.
Where the Octavia used to be and thrive, or even where the Elantra was.
Yeah.
So, and now that's culling is happening down in the mid-size segment as well. Fewer and fewer choice. So I think it is looking like it's going to get extinct. But you've got, let's say, flag bearers like the City. You've got Hyundai with the Verna. And of course, the Volkswagen Group pushing sedans as much as possible. So I think these are the last champions of sedans left. And, I think whoever wants them, I think they'll learn to appreciate these products that much more.
Now, I saw a really improved Desire and really improved Amaze, and hopefully the owners would want to, people like me would want to look for other future alternative in the sedan segment.
The reality is they'll all jump to an SUV, Ketan. That's what it is. And I think that's what customers are, manufacturers are, banking on. And then that's what it is. So I think, that's it from us this week on Deep Dive. It's all about sedans and rather the demise or the sad demise of the segment, which at one point was the only segment that existed in India for 40 years because, before the advent of the Maruti 800, we all had sedans. But that seems like a millennium ago. It is a millennium ago, actually, but seems like really ages ago. Not a lot of people remember. But I think moving forward, this is a rapidly evolving auto industry. And that's what we like to bring that context into every episode of Deep Dive. So I hope you enjoy it. Keep watching and subscribe to stay notified so you don't miss any episode, which drops every Saturday at 11 a.m. Thanks for watching.